Hi, everyone. I'm Adam, and I have two great guests with me, which I will introduce momentarily. Thank you for the people who showed up on time, and quite a few of you were even early. This is a very well-registered webinar with nicely over 200 registrants, actually really nicely over 200. So that's great. Looking through the list, there's a lot of people who are pretty mature in terms of their understanding of localization and probably AI, as well as newcomers. So we're going to have to kind of suit a broad group of people. As we get started, before we get started on the discussion, I want everybody to turn their attention to the Zoom, sort of bar. At least on a Mac, it looks like a bar across the top. It may be on the bottom. There's a Q&A button. I want you to be familiar with that because we do count on your questions. We will have a Q&A portion at the end of the formal kind of discussion. And your questions are really some of the most fun part of all this. I always urge people that if you have a question in your mind, that you write it down in that Q&A area right away. If you're on LinkedIn Live, Kate, who like on this immersive thing is marketing Lingoport, she'll be monitoring that. So you can use LinkedIn Live also for a question. But if you're on Zoom, I'll personally be able to see it and go through it. I take the questions as they come in, but the reason to write them down right away is if you're like me, if you have a question, you spend time thinking about that question and not listening. So I always try to write my questions down right away, and I encourage you to do the same. All right, with that, we're going to start on our discussion. First, I'm going to have a brief introduction here. Marina runs linguistic AI services at RWS. I'm sure most of you are familiar with RWS. They're a very large, they're a billion-dollar company in the language and technology space. So they have a lot to say. They have quite a bit of infrastructure and large customers. They enable translation at really large scales. So really great to have Marina here and to work together with her. We also have Konstantin. He leads Custom.MT. He's an excellent researcher. If you have questions about the how of implementing AI and optimizing that, Konstantin is the guy to talk to. So by all means, I'll have email addresses up at the end of this talk. I think it's on our last stream. If it's not, just email me, adam@lingoport.com, and I'll put the two of you together. And with that, we're going to head on into our discussion. So I'm going to emphasize that we're not talking like a lot of people talk about cost savings, and I know that's important, but really what we want to talk to is how are we making things better and how are we doing that at scale? That's the crux of this webinar. So let's talk about how AI right away, how is it changing the volume of scope and localization projects? And are we getting to more markets? Are we getting to more speakers of languages around the world with more content types that were really unfeasible before? So I'll throw it out there. We didn't discuss who is going to go first on any of these slides. So,
Marina, would you like to go first?
I can go first, yes. So from my observation, working with RWS clients and also knowing people in the industry, I actually haven't concluded that the volumes are growing for localization, which I find surprising myself. Rather, what the way content companies that produce content, right, which needs to be localized, approach the AI revolution is that they want to translate the same volume, but faster, more efficiently, for a lower cost, and perhaps better quality. Despite that, the AI disruption and all the possibilities that the new AI-powered technologies bring theoretically could lead to increasing the volume and the speed, the turnaround time for translations immensely. And this is a development I would really like to see, but at this moment I have not observed it. What I have observed is that there is a shifted focus towards high resource languages where AI really performs well. And the lower resource languages, the long tail languages, are kind of trailing behind. And to me, it feels like we are introducing an even higher asymmetry between top tier languages and bottom tier languages than we had before, actually. So not a very positive answer, I know, but these are my observations. Kostya, what have you seen? What is your opinion on that?
This is a very interesting question, and Adam, thank you very much for having us here. There are two opposite trends. On one hand, you have this kind of stagnation and even depression of localization. Initially, pundits like me believed there's going to be a Jevons paradox, with translation becoming less expensive. People will be buying much more of it. But this didn't happen. The increases in volume of translation bought because post-editing is more cost efficient did not result in companies buying more languages or translating more content. They say, all right, let's take it as a saving and send that saving to some other cost center, to marketing or to sales or to product. Right, so localization and us, the localization people, either assigning the budget or consuming that budget, did not get that much of an advantage. However, there is a second trend, which is completely independent of the first, and that is using unreviewed machine translation at large scale. And
Yes.
that one is exploding. If you look at cases such as Reddit last year, where they spent 12 million on machine translation and completely translated all of the user-generated content, resulting in huge growth and millions for the website sales and traffic. Then Coursera translated, I think, 20,000 lectures into a huge number of languages. There was a case with Roblox where they put chat translation so that the children playing Roblox games could talk to each other across the language barrier. I don't know, one kid from China, another one from Brazil. They're on the same server. They can communicate in their gaming language. So this kind of usage of translation, where there's no human review, it's instantaneous at huge scale. I don't know, at shops like, I don't know, Temu, Alibaba, e-commerce is exploding this way. This is growing like crazy, but it's not driven so much by localization people. It's driven by the product owners, IT departments, and somehow the builders of the next generation of translation systems are engineers.
That's really interesting. I especially like the idea of getting people to talk with each other. To me, it's like one of the foundation opportunities that the internet was supposed to bring us. You know, I will say, you know, briefly, I'm not talking about Lingoport in general in these webinars, but all of our technology is really focused on software localization and internationalization, which has a demand of being very, very quick. And I have seen incidental customers that have gone pretty aggressively into multiple languages, where like one I can think of was planning on 8 and they went into like 38. Of course, the AI language pairs are limited for some of these, and you know, nowadays they're even calling machine translation AI, but that's another discussion. But I am seeing that there's a delay on the corporate side. There's always a delay in changing technology and being able to implement new things. It's just hard. We have a slide later in the presentation to kind of deal with that. But then there's some really forward-thinking customers that are really sort of engineer first, localization second, that are really, you know, biting into this hard. So kind of interesting mix. All right, beyond speed and cost savings, how has AI impacted the quality of localized content? what improvements or challenges have you observed?
You go first, Kostya, this time. Let's alternate.
What is quality? Is it the linguistic quality? Is it the behavioral quality where conversions are increased? So before we go into this question, it's important, Adam, to define what quality is. How would you like to define
Konstantin,
it?
if you can make your mic a little louder.
I can kiss the microphone. Is that
Yeah, there
better?
you go.
Only for you. So what kind of quality would you like to start off with? I see people.
Let's start with language quality. You know, the standard definition of quality, which is you have a linguistically an accurate translation that is also grammatically correct, stylistically appropriate, and terminologically consistent.
So the traditional quality that we language people have always championed.
This is the standard definition of quality in localization, right? It's not the how users perceive it. It's about, you know, whenever you have a linguist go over that content, how many red marks are you going to get there? That is issues reported. Okay. Okay, I can continue. Okay, assuming that's the definition of quality.
I could retort if you'd like.
This is great.
Okay, give it a word. So here's my observation. I'm sure Kostya has many more. But if we take the standard definition of quality as, you know, grammatically correct, no spelling issues, and so on, I don't think that AI has impacted it very much. We are not talking about kind of a sudden transition from non-AI to AI localization. In fact, we've been using AI for quite some time, neural machine translation being a form of an AI, right, where you have an encoder and decoder. And now we are switching to an LLM, AI, like large language model powered translation, where you have just a decoder, but it's not that different. It's more fluent, right? You get hyperfluency. You can get some hallucinations that neural MT would get of a different type, right? Neural MT also hallucinated, but not in the same way as large language models. But I think it's more like an incremental process where the quality generally has been improving. I think throughout the years, the quality is getting better and better simply because the tools are getting better and better. We train better and better and more powerful engines. So quality is getting better. Also processes are getting more mature. But I have not seen a sudden change to go, wow, now with AI, suddenly we are 10% higher on the quality scale.
Well, the changes are very subtle. We've been doing quite a lot of MQM annotation on LLM translations and on machine translations. So we would say this is an accuracy error, this is a fluency error, this is locale convention, and so on. And in the past, with machine translation, one of the common thing would be formality, right? So you would say vous in French when you want to be friendly. In Polish, it's important. In some other languages, there are languages where it's super duper important. And you couldn't easily control it. You couldn't easily control the fluency. So the spelling errors have disappeared, right?
Completely.
The LLM doesn't make spelling errors. I am always like chuckling a little bit internally when somebody prompts the LLM, do not make spelling errors, right? This is a style guide for a human. Do not make spelling errors. Nobody ever follows the style guide, and the LLM sure thing is not going to follow it, but people do that. So there's no spelling errors. The formality errors are gone. But on the other hand, the mistranslations are the biggest category, and you see that omissions, adding something, or complete gibberish, when you ask them to translate from, let's say, English to Italian, and you only give them numbers, and they start to translate numbers into Italian, that can lead to mistranslations. If we speak about the linguistic quality, so error types are shifting.
I absolutely agree. I think it's actually hard to make a model produce a sentence with a spelling error, especially the older models, they weren't that smart. So it was impossible to make them produce a grammatically incorrect sentence. They couldn't do that. Now, the current models can do that already.
When I write a good email to somebody, just to show that I'm not using ChatGPT, I sometimes use ChatGPT, and then I introduce errors so that it feels like it's written by the human.
Now we know. Now, when we get an email from you with a typo, we know
Don't
it was
tell
AI
anyone.
generated. Yeah, well, 200 people know already. But hyperfluency is another thing, you know, they're very fluent. But I agree with Kostya, the type of issues that we see are really different. And sometimes they're very hard to crack. When there are some tag elements, placeholders, or numbers, the LLM can suddenly start responding in an unexpected way. Today, I was struggling with a very specific case where there would be a particular number in a segment. It's not like just any number, it's that particular number, which would trigger hallucination on the LLM side, no matter what you do, no matter how you change the prompt. That number immediately triggered hallucination until we basically had to conclude, well, there was something in the training data of that model, of the base model, where the model learned to react, you know, to associated particular weights to that number and learned to generate a particular completion after that number, and we cannot override that. So the only thing to change behavior is change the model, because probably another model wouldn't have that same training data and wouldn't have set the same weights. And these are really hard to crack. And another problem with LLM issues is that whereas before, you know, suppose you have, I don't know, some threshold of 95% of segments must be error-free, you know, and then you have 5% of segments that can contain errors, or you allow 10 errors per 1,000 words, whatever the standards were. Those errors were typically errors that would be introduced by, you know, MT and human post editor not spotting an error, or like a human error, and that would be pretty benign, I would say. It would be a spelling issue, or I don't know, forgotten preposition, missing a punctuation sign, or the Norwegian case of wrong commas. I think Norwegian generally has big issues with commas, right? So you always have the wrong commas there. With LLMs, the issues that can be present are not that easy to swallow. This can be terrible hallucinations. So you may have 0.02% of issues, like 0.02% of segments with issues, but those issues can be such that users will react immediately because they will be blank or truncated segments or some hallucination, some very big mismatch. And that is the tricky part with AI quality, that the few issues you will get are issues you cannot ignore and you cannot live with.
So that's a large onus on review, from what you're saying. And there's always been this promise of using AI to say, to focus the reviewer on what areas of the translation are the most problematic. Is that working?
I just wanted to say a joke, but it's not politically correct.
Let's
Adam, you're the
not.
host. May I?
Politics is so bad right now. Let's not go there.
Okay, so
Go ahead,
no.
go ahead.
It's not a politically correct joke. It goes back to the times when you could make those jokes and get away with it, and nobody complained. From Soviet times. So a policeman stops a car driven by a blonde lady, and it's not my joke, but bear with me, please. Don't sue me after. And he says, "Well, this is the third pedestrian you've run over this month. How could you do it?" And she answers, "Oh, so what? Then what kind of quota do I have the right to?" This is the kind of situation I think, Marina, you've been describing. How many pedestrians can a car run over?
Yes, exactly.
Do I get away with this?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I have black hair, so it's totally
Okay,
fine.
all right.
Keep your day job. Keep your day job.
It's from the 80s, before the ethical language.
All right.
Okay, let's get serious and continue talking about AI.
All right. I'm going to
You
go to
know
the
I
next
love your
question.
jokes, Kostya.
All right.
So,
How should we be measuring AI-assisted localization quality? Have the metrics changed? Konstantin, I'm picking on you first.
Well, the old metrics are still in play, and you wouldn't believe it how many people still use Blue. Because Blue is explainable. Comet is much more respectable among scientists, But if you try to translate what comet means to a non-scientific person, even to scientific person, it doesn't mean anything. So one model is comet 1.8, another model is comet 70. Which one's better? Who knows? It's only important when you compare the two. But what has really changed now is that people use AI to evaluate AI. So one model acts as a judge, and then they kind of fight with each other. My machine translation is good. No, your machine translation is bad. And then they go into this loop until they produce something they agree on, which might not be something that a human agrees on. Anyway, so LLM as a judge is rising. In our industry, we call it quality estimation, pioneered by Taos and Model Front years before. Now, of course, they use all the latest models, probably fine-tuning something like Mistral or another open source model, maybe DeepSeek, who knows. Quality estimation is the real boom this year, right? Everywhere you look, somebody is either implementing it or asking how to implement it, and they go with all kinds of APIs, both the industry commercialized APIs, but very often it's just ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini, which is often used. So this kind of machine translation with whatever, automated post-editing with ChatGPT or Claude, and then quality estimation or kind of a critic model which checks an AI editor, AI editing agent, whatever you call it with the latest lingo. This is the hip thing of the day, and people are very, very excited about it. They say, well, why are we still checking machine translation with humans? Can't we check it with AI? Let's do that. And here goes nothing. So some of them stop checking with humans or reduce the checking with humans this way. This further reduce the cost. And Marina, you can continue because you know the story.
No, I will start from the beginning because you didn't answer the question.
Okay, then I think I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay. So I first answered that specific question, but then I'm going to talk about what Kostya talks, because the topic that he touched upon is super interesting. So the question is, how should we be measuring AI assistant localization quality? Well, the same way you measure any other localization quality. It doesn't matter whether a human produced it, whether an statistical empty engine produced it, or a large language model produced it. You should keep the same standards, okay? It's like, you don't have the blonde lady who has a special quota.
I knew I wouldn't get away with this.
Yes. So you just measure the same way, okay? Because after all, what is important is what the quality is, not what produced it.
How many pedestrians? Yes. How many errors per 100 words? Yes.
Exactly. If that is your measure, yeah. But now the metrics haven't changed. So those that existed are still the same, but new ones appeared. That is the new thing, right? New metrics appeared, and some of the very interesting metrics are metrics that actually use a large language model to evaluate. And here I'm getting to Kostya's second part of the answer, which took 9%. And that is like how we now can use AI to evaluate localization quality, no matter how the localization was done, right? Whether it was done by AI or by humans, it doesn't matter. I am a big fan of that because generally, when we were doing the standard human-based LQAs, annotating errors according to the MQM error typology and error severities, this was time-consuming. You could cover, I don't know, depending on how big the volumes you have, you may just cover 0.5% of all the content, if you produce millions of words per week. And that was really time consuming. So it didn't give you a good idea of what the overall quality is. With AI, you can basically quite cheaply evaluate every segment, which is wonderful. You can have 100% coverage. Now the question is, can we make AI evaluate quality in a reliable way, the way a human would do? I'm not going to touch the question of how reliable humans are, okay? Because then this is gonna trigger lots of jokes, I'm sure. But yeah, let's assume that humans are the standard of reliability. Sometimes they don't agree with each other. Sometimes they don't agree with themselves because a week later they're in a much better mood and they give much higher scores. But let's take them as the standard. But how reliable can AI evaluation be? From my practical experience, getting an LLM to do a really objective and human power evaluation of translation quality is the hardest thing to get an AI model to do. TM cleanups, easy peasy. Terminology mining, super easy. Summarization, easy. Getting the human type of evaluation is very difficult for two reasons. First of all, LLMs are monotaskers. If you are to evaluate a segment from all points of view that a human takes, adding the common sense to it, because humans bring a lot of common sense when they evaluate the segment. This means you want a model to multitask tremendously, and they cannot multitask. You cannot ask them in one prompt to do 100 things. You have to break this down and kind of create these atomic prompts, as I call them, and ask them to do one thing, another thing. Evaluate for terminology, evaluate for style, evaluate for fluency. This is not necessary because it's fluent, but evaluate for, I don't know, whether the tone of voice is the right one, and so on. So that's the first issue. The second one is sycophancy. Now, when an LLM senses that you want it to report errors, it gladly does so. I don't know whether you have the same experience, Kostya, but these things try to please the users. This is part of their training. They are sycophantic. They try to please the users, and they can sense, they can understand intent in a way. So they tend to really over-report issues. Just to
What a
please.
beautiful word, Marina. Psychopath.
Which of all the beautiful words I said?
Sycophantic?
Sycophantic or over-report issues?
The psychophantic, yes.
Yes.
Nobody else used this word in the last 3 years, I think, in my discourse.
Nobody else pronounced it because it's so difficult to pronounce, but I'm pretty sure everybody wrote it or at least read it. Yeah, I had to practice for an hour before this webinar to be able to say it.
You wait.
Okay, another thing I had to practice for an hour. Actually, now I'm taking this in a completely different direction, but I think it's so relevant, I cannot resist the temptation. So another thing I practiced for an hour, I consulted GPT, and the owner of the phrase I practiced was the name of Marta Nieto Cayuela, who is a friend of mine, a localization team leader working at Uber, who just published an extraordinary article about, and this is a promo for that article, but you gotta read it. She published an extraordinary article about evaluating LLM quality. It is the article we all wanted to read 2 years ago, including Marta. And in the end, she sat down and she wrote it. I can share with you the link in the chat if I'm allowed, if I have the rights, but it's really a beautiful piece of encyclopedic knowledge. Let me do that right away if I have the rights.
Sure.
But it's
I'm
two
also
years
gonna-
later, right, Marina?
I gotta
But
cut
still
you-
very valid. It's still very valid. In fact, she's written 2 articles. This is part 2. You can go and find part 1. Once I send you the link, you will find the place. Yeah. So let me do
While
it.
you're
This is a
sharing
lot
the
of
link,
fun, but I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried we're going to let time get away from us. I will make sure the link goes out. Kate from marketing will be sending the recording copy and all that. We'll include that link in the email as well. So very good.
do I just have 3 seconds to say that I disagree with Marina?
No,
You just said it.
just 3 seconds.
All right. What AI-powered localization workflows have proven most effective in your experience?
I'll let Kostya talk first because then I can disagree with
No,
him. If I speak first, he can disagree with me.
I wanted to,
guys are the
let's say,
best.
TMX cleanup. We will both agree, the janitor's duty.
Yes, we have to agree here. There's no way I can say no to that.
You had the best presentation
Yeah,
possible
okay.
at Gala.
You win a point, fine.
Okay.
Next one, Kostya. What else?
Right.
I have
So
one.
tailored translation, where you stylize.
Okay.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
favorite is terminology mining. In general, large language models are super good at summarizing, and terminology mining is a way to summarize, like extract the most important key items, in a text, for which I think their attention mechanism is very good, is very well suited, right? Because that's what the attention mechanism does, in fact.
Well, it has such a great attention that sometimes when you check the list of terms that it extracted, half of the terms it made up from its background knowledge on the topic. So you want to check that really the terms are coming from the text. So yeah.
That hasn't happened to me, but what has happened to me is when I ask the LLM to give me also the number of occurrences, it cannot count. Of course, we all know they cannot count. So they come up with, if you say, give me the most important terms, their definitions, part of speech, and how many times the term appears in the text, they will make up the number.
Yeah. Then in context translation, right? You can give it
Yes.
context, visual context, screenshots, or you can give it context such as character gender. And I know, for example, G5 games switched from in TMS translation to spreadsheets just because they could provide more context in the spreadsheets to an LLM, and TMS could not, and they got better stuff out of a spreadsheet. Another company which did it was Tencent Games, also gaming. They built all this automation around the Claude and ChatGPT in spreadsheets, and because I don't know, characters, events, they need a lot of context in translation. Then this kind of workflow was more efficient. Well, I think testing is an up and coming localization workflow where you give it a screenshot and it detects the bugs, localization bugs. You haven't localized this. This is the wrong font. That kind of thing. And maybe handwriting extraction, right? Because it can not only read the handwriting from the image, but also correct the errors based on a general sense of where the text is going. I would probably leave you the honor of discussing the primary agentic work for translation and supporting processes. Marina?
Oh, thank you very much. You're leaving agentic to me, the hot topic. Well, I thought that the question was more like one particular type of task that LLMs are good at, right? So, for example, TM cleanup and in-context translation. But I'm kind of more tempted to actually turn around the question. Sorry for not directly talking about agentic AI workflows, but I'm curious, and I really am curious. What do you think, Kostya, are the things that AI is really bad at? So we all agree TM cleanups, that's a fantastic use case for AI. But where have you seen AI actually not perform that well?
I have a few cases, but because they're customer specific,
I see you cannot share.
Okay, let's say when we split the prompt into 10 prompts to evaluate different aspects of LQA, that was a terrible disaster, right? Our shorter, simple prompt with a few instructions, one prompt, produced a better agreement with the human than the 10 prompt system, like you recommended. So we had the opposite experience, but
I see.
maybe the devil was in the nuance, right? Because
so this brings us to agentic workflows. If you are to take
okay, well, let's do agentic and then I'll give you the last one.
Okay, so that is actually a good use case for agentic because quality evaluation is in general a very good use case for agentic because what you need there is what I call like different experts, let's say, different specialized reviewers. You need a reviewer for terminology, you need a reviewer for style, you need a controller, you need somebody who at the end, when all the reviews from the individual experts are obtained, all the evaluations, you need another expert linguist reviewer or agent to compile, to assess all that information and compile one single evaluation. And this is where agentic workflows are very useful because the proper usage of the word agentic means that you have like autonomous agents that make decisions on their own, and you send your prompts and there is a planner, there is a scheduler, there is a distributor, and then every expert, which is an individual agent. So you have the terminology agent, you have the style guide agent, and you have the grammar and spelling agent, if necessary. In most cases, it's not. Do their work, provide their evaluation or their issues to the final agent who compiles the eventually, the errors which are associated with a segment and resolves conflicts, right? Because sometimes you can have one agent saying, this is the right term to use according to the terminology database, and another agent who is responsible for style says, that's not the best word here to fit stylistically, we should use a different word. So the agent who compiles all the information must also know how to prioritize. Terminology trumps style, for example.
I'm just going to mention that sounds like a lot of very careful prompting and setup.
Yes, and I have two words for this: compounding hallucinations.
Oh, really? You
Yeah,
mean
so
if
it can
each one
work,
of
but
them
it can also lead to a text which is very, very far removed. You know the child's game where people sit
yeah,
in a circle, you whisper
Chinese
in
telephone.
one's ear
Yeah.
and they whisper to the next person, and then when it comes full circle back, it's not the original sentence. Yeah, that happens.
But that is a chain, right? This is aggregation of errors because of a chain. With LLMs, you don't have a chain. You have a society of mind, and they are not linearly organized. So it is a bit different architecturally.
Yeah, we're going down the rabbit hole, Adam. I think
Well, we
it's
have a very
We're going to have to move
sophisticated
on.
audience, don't we?
yeah, we do.
Uh, I can tell the audience that we're probably going to run over. So, but this seems very
Another
worthwhile.
passenger.
All right. Um, well, we've kind of covered, sort of some of the technical AI difficulties, which feels a little funny to me in that you'd think that we were going to say how great AI was over this whole webinar, but it's
Don't worry, we'll make AI great again before we are done.
right.
No, it is because we think it's great that we can allow ourselves to criticize it.
Yes, that's a good point. So what I see is that, it's still early in terms of a lot of AI adoption. You have organizational pressures to use AI, but what I've seen in accounts is that there's a tremendous amount of security concern. Oh, we're going to lose our IP, especially, and I'm talking beyond like the latest marketing promo announcement. I'm talking about like, everything I do touches code. I mean, that's what Lingoport does. And there's nothing sort of more close to a technology company's intellectual property heart than their code, right? And even the strings in their code and their screenshots and all that. Um, so you see this organizational, mandate, hey, use AI. But then on the other side, there's, oh, but we can't use AI, or we have to use some AI that is specific to our company, which of course isn't going to have the same sort of language training that something like, you probably can't read this graph, but it lists a bunch of different popular AI engines and their shares, but it's just not going to have that if it's the XYZ version of the AI. So in a way, I'm answering my own question, but what do we have to overcome here?
Start.
Shall we get into the fight over something, right? We were planning to fight over something. We're agreeing on everything. So let's get into a fight over who starts. You start.
I
We can
start.
agree.
No, you
We
fight
can,
with
we
me.
can, we can
No,
agree.
I'll just
That's
start
fine.
because I understand we are short of time. I don't know when we are supposed to end, but Adam keeps saying we're going to go over time. So the difficulties are many. From my point of view, the biggest difficulty is getting the knowledge. And two reasons. First of all, AI is very new, right? And people, it's 2 years old basically. And there isn't the tradition, to learn prompting, have like more technical approach to language, do have knowledge of how to handle data. Data analysis is a very big part of any AI implementation and working with AI. So to me, the biggest hurdle is knowledge. Even if you acquire the knowledge, even if you read every weekend, the latest articles and so on, the speed of development is so fast that it's really hard to stay appraised of the latest development. So I'm kind of constantly feeling that, I'm racing against, the world, trying to keep my knowledge, which I absolutely don't manage. Okay. So that.
Whoops, we lost you, Marina.
Okay. I just had used that time for a brilliant response, but let's give Marina a chance to finish.
Way integrated in technology. Then My internet
are
connection is
a little bit
unstable, so
there.
I might freeze at particular
You,
time.
you
So I'm
froze.
giving the
You,
word
you
to.
froze there.
I know. Yeah, I'm getting here a notification.
So you said
So
knowledge.
Kostya, over to you.
I'm going to respond with competitive human nature. So you go into an organization, let's say your localization business unit, you say, I want to use AI, but then your other department says, no, you can't, because we are the custodians of AI. The IT says no.
Oh,
And
wow.
you convince them, and then legal says, no, you can't use it because we control the AI in our organization. Right. So if you don't find a way in this competitive kind of landscape to go around and to kind of find a key to every door, then you'll stop before every door, and somebody else will control AI.
But I think the reason for that, I wouldn't say it's the competitiveness of human nature or jealousy or whatever, is because there are so many aspects to handle when dealing with AI, right? There is the technical aspect. So the engineering teams, the IT teams, they feel like we know about that, right? Because this is technical. Then there is the language aspect of AI, which is also very important. So the localization teams and the linguists, and the reviewers, they're like, no, we know about that. And legal, of course, need to be there because you have a lot of potential bad legal issues, right? So I am more positive towards human nature. I don't think it is competitiveness. I think it's simply that all these teams must collaborate and create that collaborative framework to actually handle all aspects of AI.
Marina, you're such an incurable optimist.
Absolutely, yeah, totally.
I actually, I'm going to stick with Marina's answer on this. Because
So I win a point here.
So right, I'm fine with being the minority.
Well,
Yes.
what we're talking about is a really culturally healthy organization. And that's what we should all be aspiring to. So, all right. What implementations of AI and localization do you find most promising or exciting for the future? We need to go positive a little bit, everybody.
The moment I see the word future and AI in one sentence, I automatically go, I have no idea. Because I don't know what model is going to come out there, tomorrow, right? We started with these foundational models, then we got the agentic AI workflows. Now we have reasoning models who behave in a very different way and then can be used in a different way in localization processes. And I don't know, Kostya, are you already experimenting with reasoning models in localization processes?
In localization, no. We tried DeepSeek R1 for translation. And
I see.
although it's pretty good for translation, it's like Google Translate level.
Yeah.
The reasoning just produces too many kind of irrelevant tokens or hallucinations. Oh, maybe the capital of Paris, of France is Paris. Yeah, I think that's the one. That's not relevant to the latest event took place in the capital of France or something like that.
Yeah, but back to the question, okay, from the current state of AI, so with the models we have today, extrapolating that to the future, when we will have other models, doing other things, I think that, to me, the best implementation of AI in localization is to not replace what we've been doing. That is not replace human translators and do translation instead of humans, but to there is this word and it is what is complement? That's the word I'm looking for. Complement them in a way that we use AI to do things that we never even dreamt of doing before. For example,
I have a joke about that.
I'm sure you have a joke about that, yeah, but let me finish my sentence. For example, AI and humans can translate at the same kind of roughly the same quality. Humans, of course, translate better, but they're slower. Okay, so let's keep that aside. But nobody before ever dreamt of having a full-scale TM cleanup because that would take a human a couple of years to complete, right? But with AI now we can do that. We can clean our TMs, we can maintain our terminology databases continuously in an excellent shape. So I would, maybe because I'm very positive and also I'm very human oriented and empathetic towards translators, I would go for using AI for those things that we even couldn't do before, instead of replacing what we know how to do. Very idealistic view, I know. Not very compatible with cost saving, but there you go. Kostya.
Do you want a joke?
Yes, I'm waiting for the joke.
It's something that just came up. It could be not funny, so I'll let you be the judge of that. So
Your jokes are never funny anyway, so.
no, never funny. No. Javier never gets my humor for a reason, and Joseph. It's been proven by scientific papers that ChatGPT and Claude are particularly good at therapy, right? At mental health and mental help. In localization, we never dreamt of needing mental help before, but perhaps this year things are changing and we can use AI in a way we've never dreamt of before in localization, but for therapy.
Localization therapy, that sounds very good. Yeah. To be accurate, because you know I'm a scientist by heart, it's not that Claude, and sorry for spoiling your joke, but it's not that Claude and GPT are very good at mental health. People are very good at believing what they say, anthropomorphizing them, and thereby improving their own mental health. Yeah, we can try that. We can add a feature in every CAT tool, which is the mental health assistant, like a little chatbot that is gonna praise for every translation. Wow, that's the best translation I've ever seen. You're doing such a great job today.
Okay,
why not?
Let's go to questions.
Well, my son likes to say that it's AI is often confidently incorrect, but that's another issue outside of this question.
That's just like Kostya.
That was an ad hominem argument. I didn't expect it from you.
That's because of the blonde.
Kostya roast. You know, I will say to the audience that, like, if you're new to this and you know you want to get a big perspective, I mean, there's established books like The Singularity is Nearer or Life 3.0 and that sort of thing that really delve into the future predictions. But they are entertaining reading, or if you like audiobooks, they're good.
My favorite one is The Alignment Problem. It's actually quite old, but it's still so valid and it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Adam, before we go into questions, can I advertise something?
Wait a minute, because this is our last webinar question. Then we'll go. We already have, gosh, there's 10 questions on the Q&A interface. There's 7 on the chat. So, wow. We probably won't be able to complete all of them, but I'll try to get them completed in the follow-up email. All right, question 7. What advice would you give to localization professionals who want to effectively integrate AI into their work? And I want to emphasize, we're trying to be practical now. How does a localization manager who usually is understaffed in their team, like chronically understaffed, with way too much to do, how do they really, you know, sort of take advantage of the latest technologies and produce better and be able to sleep at night?
Sleep at night with AI, okay. I'll go first because I wanted to advertise something and the segues perfectly. Marina and I were continuing our conversation in May at the next conference, which will be called Gen AI and Localization. You learn how to do prompts, you learn how to evaluate models. So follow the show. The circus is going to travel to the next destination. And if you want to learn how to effectively integrate AI into your work, then just do it. My advice is once you've acquired enough knowledge, just start your first project. The best way to learn it, because there are no really great books or tried and tested I don't know, manuals on how to implement this recent technology into the niche subject of localization. The important thing is to get into the fight. So get into the project, fail once, fail twice, on the third time is the charm.
Well, if you are a localization manager that is understaffed, under-budgeted, overwhelmed, I think that it's kind of unrealistic to expect that you will have time to read and play. Maybe you don't even have access to those tools, right? So in such case, first of all, I'm really sorry for such, cases, because I know people who are in exactly this situation. I think in such case, the best thing would be go talk to a partner. Like, you probably have a supplier. Your supplier may have knowledge. You may either, work together on a project to implement AI together, or you may, in a way, engage in collaboration with the supplier to get some knowledge, leverage the experience that the supplier has, or simply use the supplier. Sometimes it's easier to just use the supplier to convert to processes that are AI based, right? Even though I appreciate that in most cases, the pressure from leadership is we want to do AI internally, right? We don't want to be dependent on suppliers anymore. Now we have AI, so we can do all our localization on our own. But it is not that easy. Once you start doing it, you realize, you can do some translations in ChatGPT using the chat environment or in Gemini and so on. But once you go full scale and you want to push everything through AI, it's actually not that easy. But if you have the team, and if you have the tools, and if you have the knowledge, here are the two things which I would recommend. First of all, go talk to a linguist, to a real living, breathing linguist, and understand what will really help the linguist in their work, AI-based, right? Because there is this paradox that engineers implement all sorts of AI-powered features in CAT tools, TMSs, and so on, and linguists never use them. And linguists use AI in a completely different way that engineers never suspected about. So there is this, discrepancy in how linguists actually use AI, and they use a lot of AI, much more than we expect, but not for the things that we think they use AI for. Okay, so align with your linguist so that you can implement AI in a way that is really helpful and doesn't cause frustration. And the second thing is, if you are a localization manager and you have a linguistic background, go talk to engineers and learn to talk to engineers. You have to work with engineers. You will not be able to do it on your own because there's a lot of technical knowledge necessary, and not only technical knowledge, coding, engineering, but you will also need to work with data analysts, data specialists, because data
problem is that
one of the key.
engineers do not understand what style guides and glossaries are. So
then, yeah,
anyway,
engineers and linguists generally
let's
speak
get
different languages.
let's
Yeah.
get to the questions. There are too many.
I will just
Marina,
go and turn on the lamp because I'm sitting in a pitch dark room and I'm kind of about to fall asleep. Yeah. Even though Kosti keeps me awake with his questions, I just turn on the lamp
you're
Now
pretty
be
much
back.
illuminated. You're good
because
to
of
go.
the screen, but all the rest is dark.
Okay.
I'm gonna just
That's my lesson for
also
interrupting
just
Marina.
Okay, now I'm fine.
guys, okay. I'm going to just mention that Lingoport is going to have a really substantial release later this quarter that it gives tremendous string control for software localization and visual context, all integrated with every string. We already have some of that, but it's greatly expanded with Figma and mobile and everything. And we've been working with RWS's development teams to get everything to show up really nicely within Trados Enterprise and all the various Trados Studio products. It's going to be super cool, but also has real applications for context there, so that's cool. I mean, we do work with other TMSs, but I've got to say the RWS development team has just been great. So
Yes, they are.
super cool.
Right. Now that we've all advertised what we were contractually obligated to advertise,
we got to pay the rent, All right. Where's my cursor? There we go. I'm going to go with the QA interface since you guys followed instructions best. All right. First question at 10:07, so right away. When localizing for specific products, say a video game in a particular genre, how do you give an AI the correct context to understand the correct phrasing to present yourself, ending up with complete gibberish? This is a massive obstacle that our team has encountered. And yeah, this is great. And it also lends itself to software where you have like just a very small string. I should shut up, let you folks answer.
Marina, let's do the following. We kind of buzz the buzzer, and the first person answering answers in one line. Then we can
Well,
do
I
10
can
questions
set
in
the
6
timer
minutes.
up. Go ahead.
All right.
You
So
already
the
used
first
your
answer
minute.
would be-
Yeah.
ding,
Go ahead, Kostya.
buzzer. You script variables into the prompt. You inject them using spreadsheets. That's what scrappy game localization companies do. Doable.
I'll be
Oh my
honest.
God, I'm gonna kill that one. Spreadsheets? No, thank you. use Lingoport's localizer, but that's enough. I'm not supposed to say that. Go ahead, Marina.
Well, if it's video localization, I need to understand better the problem. I'm sorry, I cannot answer like Kostya, but like how much additional assets do you have that you can plug into, you know, the prompt? Like, can you use RAG? You know, do you have the visual actually? Can you accompany the prompt for translation with additional like visual information because it's video localization, right? So that is all the questions that I need to have the answers for in order to provide a technically accurate answer. So,
Fair enough. Okay.
sorry.
So no easy answer, clearly. And I would invite you, whoever it's somebody anonymous asked it to just write me and I'll put you together with Marina to get
Adam,
more
sorry, I want to interrupt for 1 sec. We really cannot take all these questions, but we have a few questions that was upvoted, so they are most interesting to everyone.
Oh, okay,
Can
great.
you please filter? You can see a filter on the right upper corner. There is most recent and most upvoted. Just choose the most.
I don't see it, but in the interest of not faffing around with the Q&A interface, can you just read them off?
Okay, sure, no problem. So
yeah.
the question is from Michelle. You say that LLMs are good at TM cleaning, but TMs are huge and LLMs are slow. How do you overcome that?
Computational power is the one answer. A lot of computational power. To give you a concrete example, we were cleaning, like latest example, 36 million segment TM. We used 12 processors, right? So you basically use a kind of a solution where you have multiple parallel workers and you can distribute the work. But still, you know, it may take 2 days, may take 3 days. Sometimes it takes a week to just run. So you need a lot of computational power. And the very important thing here is batch, like don't send your entire TM, like all 36 million segments at once, because then if something fails, you have to restart everything. You need to partition that in batches so that when you have a failed response, you don't need to rerun the whole thing. You just need to rerun a batch.
3 days, $5,000.
Okay, and there is another addition from the same person. She asks, so you use a local LLM? So that's a question.
Marina uses local, we use APIs from the cloud.
Yeah, we have local LLMs, but we also use some of the LLMs that are provided by the big providers. And then you just connect through an API, yes.
Okay,
All right.
great. Move to the next one. The upvoted. I will read it, okay?
Michelle.
So these are from Anonymous, I don't know the name. So what are the good commercially available tools out there to do terminology extraction with AI on large documents? What I have in my TMS statistical extraction from the 90s, and it just doesn't work well. I have mingled with Microsoft Copilot agents, but without much luck so far.
We built our own, so I don't know.
Same.
Yeah.
Okay, short answer.
We are not
Okay.
very helpful, Kostya, aren't we?
Another one from Peter Tatishev. In the industry, you often generalize LLMs as one entity, but there are obviously multiple LLMs out there. Can you highlight any interesting differences between LLMs when it comes to localization tasks? The obvious ones, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and maybe some of the more specific ones like Lara.
That's a very interesting question.
It will take an hour to answer. We like Claude, it's growing very fast.
Yeah, Claude is good.
Lara is also.
OpenAI is quite powerful. Llama is very obedient. So if you want to have like very straightforward responses that fit into your prompt and no creativity, go for Llama.
Good.
I think he meant Lara.
Lara.
No,
Lara. It was Lara.
I mean llama. I mean Meta's
Oh,
llama.
okay, it was Lara.
And I meant
Okay.
Lara.
Okay. So another question from Jennifer. Do you consider original source content creation in various languages a good alternative to translating from one language to all others?
We have a project like that. It has its unique challenges. It's not straightforward. So you can do it, but then you need really high quality copywriters who understand the voice, and they're not easy to find.
You need a very good prompt, a very rich prompt, and also you can apply that only to particular types of content. Your content should lend itself well to AI generation without sounding bland and being factually inaccurate.
We
I'm gonna
tried with
mention we're
product
at a
descriptions for a
we're
very
at a
specific
full
job.
hour now. We have a lot more questions.
Maybe 5 minutes. Just there are like 2 more questions that was upvoted and one from
Okay,
LinkedIn, the
great.
short
So
one. Just
everybody, I'm sorry for
five more
making you
minutes.
late for
Yes.
your next meeting, but we'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also from Michelle, when will LLMs finally correctly answer the critical questions of how many R's are in strawberry?
They already do. Latest model can know about strawberry, but I always ask myself whether they know about how many R there are in strawberry because that was finally included in their training data. I don't know. But the more complicated models that have also reasoning steps integrated in them, and some of them have even tool calling, function calling, they can already do that.
Good. Are you seeing any progress in SLM, small language models, as a way to bridge the gap with minority languages? What piece of the puzzle you feel is missing to help develop SLM?
Data.
Can I have a very nerdy academic answer to that, which I'm not even sure is correct, but my first hunch is that a large language model will always perform better than a small language model that has been trained on a particular language data only. And the reason for that is rooted in a phenomenon called cross-lingual transfer. To put it very simply, if you have, I don't know, a giant data set where you have 100 million segments of English and 10,000 segments of Swahili, the model will learn Swahili better if you compare it with a small language model that was trained only with the 10,000 segments of Swahili data. And the reason for that is because through English, the model will learn a lot about language in general. You know, don't forget there is something called universal grammar, and there are rules which are applicable to every language in this world. And then it will transfer the knowledge from English also to Swahili. So large language models trained on multilingual data perform on the individual languages better than small language model trained just on an individual language.
There are people right now in India, in Africa, and Latin America collecting data, and they're not necessarily trained in machine translation anymore, no more Marian. They would train LLM style, but they don't have the computational power to produce a GPT-5, right? So they'll do a smaller language model, a distilled one, and they'll use their data as a sprinkle on top of the, I don't know, medium-sized llama, perhaps. So even, I mean, the question is not yes or A or B. It's only going to be this way from now on.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And the last one from LinkedIn, because I promised the person to ask this question. So to question from Marina from Adobe. We are starting to see push from stakeholders to move forward with raw LLM produced translation. How can we exercise any risk control in this scenario?
Hi, Marina. Nice to have you here. I think you need to have a whole battery of checks to make sure that there are no hallucinations going through and being exposed to the end users. Lots of checks. Checks for tag, checks for truncation, check for inappropriate language, even though probably in the prompt you can control for that. Simply a lot of checks before you publish on the website or you expose the content to the users.
Well, that was a question for Marina, right?
From Marina? From Marina.
No, it was not for, but it was from. I don't know. It was
okay,
for.
so today I can contribute.
Yes.
Some of the
okay.
checks that Marina has described can be scripted with Python. We call them guardrails, so they'll be executed with a small computational resource. And you can also use the agentic workflow with a critic model to reduce the risk, but not completely eliminate.
Okay, that's all questions. Adam, to you.
Thank you very much. Konstantin, I want to appreciate that we kind of picked on you a little bit, and you've been like a super good sport. Really appreciate that. Marina, great answers. Both of you, really, I've appreciated the chemistry between you and the depth of your answers. This is really, as far as I've seen in the industry, a pretty unique conversation in terms of the level, and I invite you all to stay in touch. You've got my email there. It's pretty easy to remember. If you want me to pass on a question or something to our guests, I'm more than happy to do that. Of course, I want you also to visit lingoport.com. We have a really active blog also. And one of the things that we do is we take, really, when I say we, I really mean Kate. We take these webinars and we summarize them.
By the way, someone asked if anyone's doing notes or summaries, and yes, I replied to the person, but I will also can say that we will prepare a blog article based on this webinar.
Right.
With
and
Kostya's
it will be
joke inside, right?
absolutely.
I mean, it's really worth your while to check the Lingoport blog every now and then. We send newsletters out about it and that sort of thing, but I know that sometimes gets ignored. But we really tried to keep it all stuff, not fluff. There's really good value for you to visit there. All right, we'll have another webinar in May. We're still circling around the guests. I'm hoping for a really dynamic conversation again. We're trying to put together something with people that have large amounts of languages that they support. So over 50 languages. Because I think that's a very special type of problem or opportunity. So anyway, again, thank you so much, Marina and Konstantin. This has been really my pleasure to work with both of you, and Kate for making it all work also. Everybody,
Thank you for the
until next
invitation.
month,
Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll see you again.
Thank you for having us. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.